Hello, everybody. My name is Gilda Ross. I am the Glenbard Student and Community Projects Coordinator. I am delighted that you are here for this very, very important program. I know that you are just as excited as I am. And I have to tell you, I have been working on having Shefali come to GPS for a long time. And so this day has finally come, and I'm so glad that you are here as well. I want to thank all of the sponsors who make GPS possible. And I'm so grateful to you for the gift and the trust of your time. It will be a very important hour. People are welcome from everywhere, across the street, across the country. So that's our ask of you, to please share if you like us on social media, and come back again. You will always be inspired and educated and learn as we connect around GPS. Quickly, I want to very, very quickly tell you about upcoming programs happening in the next few weeks. Next week, we have a program in Urdu on Tuesday. For those families that would benefit from that, please share. And then on Wednesday, a week from today, on the 31st, David Sheff, the author of Beautiful Boy, Everything a Father Learned Through His Son's Addiction, will be in conversation with Jessica Leahy. She is the author of The Gift of Failure. His book, Beautiful Boy, about his son's addiction, was made into a movie with Timothée Chalamet, and that will be a topic of conversation when we meet next week at noon and 7 p.m. on Zoom. Kicking off Black History Month the next night on February 1st, Dr. Tyrone Howard from UCLA, the Director of Education, will be talking about how all children must thrive. Inspiration, absolutely. Don't miss Dr. Howard. And then we've got a program that I know parents are very concerned about. Parents don't know everything, what experts are saying about the future of college and career. And Mark Perna will be with us on February 6th at noon and 7 p.m. So mark your calendar, go to the website, find the information, get a brochure, and listen in. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Cathy Stuber. I want to mention also that this particular event was organized in partnership with Kids Matter. And as you know, their mission is to build resilient children in the Western suburbs, and also in the Western suburbs, and now soon to be beyond the Western suburbs, is the branch. And the person who will be introducing you today, that you'll meet, is Dr. Cathy Stuber. She is the founder of Branch Moms, which networks with 80,000 people throughout the Western suburbs, and again, growing and growing. Let's get right into it. Dr. Cathy, take it away.
Thank you, Gilda, and welcome. Today, I get the honor of introducing Dr. Shefali and Cathy, so I'll get right into it. Dr. Shefali is an acclaimed author and international speaker who received her doctorate in the clinical psychology from Columbia University. Specializing in the integration of Western psychology and Eastern, she brings together the best of both worlds for her clients. Dr. Shefali is an expert in family dynamics and personal development, and her approach to the parent-child journey is a major paradigm shift. She has written 6 books, 3 of which are New York Times bestsellers, including her 2 landmark books, The Conscious Parent and The Awakened Family. Along with her work on conscious parenting, Dr. Shefali has worked with a diversity of people, from the survivors of the tsunami to corporate leaders, and partnered with Oprah Winfrey for countless on-air discussions. Dr. Shefali will be in conversation with Cathy Adams, LCSW. Cathy is the co-host with her husband of the Zen Parenting Radio podcast. She is the author of 2 award-winning books, including Zen Parenting, Caring for Ourselves and Our Children in an Unpredictable World. Wow, isn't that true? She is a clinical social worker and teaches in the sociology department at Dominican University. We are delighted to welcome them both to this important GPS, Branch Moms and Kids Matter event. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. So glad Shefali's here. Hi, Shefali.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. So excited to be here.
Thank you. Shefali, it's good to see you. And I just want to start by telling everybody I've known Shefali for 14 years. I figured that out with my fast math. And I met Shefali when she had just written The Conscious Parent. It had just come out. It was before Oprah. And I will just say, because I know Shefali's become really famous and everybody sees her, and look at her, you know, she's this gorgeous, awesome woman, and she's out there in the world doing all these things. But she is one of the kindest, most generous, down-to-earth people that I know. So I think sometimes when you blow up into fame, people get the wrong idea about how, easy it is to talk with someone or get to know someone, but Shefali is just a lovely human. So I just wanted to start with that, Shefali. I appreciate knowing you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Only you keep saying I've blown up in the way I have, but in my little world, I'm still, just a little girl who's just so excited about life and being here with lovely people like you. So thank you. I'm honored. And Cathy is one of my go-to people when I need wisdom, and you're going to see how awesome she is. And I'm going to be at her conference very soon. So we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we will. I'm so glad about that too. Okay. So speaking of blowing up, Shefali, you have been with Oprah a number of times, again, starting back with The Conscious Parent, but you were recently with her about your new book, The Parenting Map. But I feel like I remember you told me like a year ago that the idea for the parenting map was actually something Oprah was pushing you to do. So can you explain what she was asking you to do or what she was looking for and what you ended up with?
Sure. So we're talking about this book, The
Yes.
Parenting Map. And yes, she kept telling me that this whole philosophy of the conscious parent was so phenomenal on one hand, but she was aware that the zeitgeist was not prepared for such a radical shift of parenting methodology. We had been so steeped in the traditional way of parenting our children that here this new philosophy was too advanced, was too threatening for people, too provocative. And she said, break it down into really tight, tiny bites of information, make a map, give out the how. And at that time, 14 years ago, I wasn't ready to give the how because I needed to teach people the what and the why. So this is my fourth parenting book. I've written some other books, but this is my fourth parenting book. And when it came out, I told her that she had inspired it because, and she was right, because people did need the brass tacks and the tools and the techniques. And so this book is really very simple compared to my other books. It's easy to follow, and it lays out this blueprint that I think every parent is missing and floundering because they don't know the how to parent consciously.
Yeah. And, with all of your writing, with the things you're saying with the conscious parent, and, it's what Todd and I always try and talk about on the show too, is we're focusing not so much on the kid, we're focusing on what's going on with you. And, you actually say in your book, the hardest thing for parents to hear is this isn't about your kid, this is about you. And so how have you noticed, and when I say that, that's very nuanced, but it's something we have to accept that this is a relationship, not just the kid. It is what's happening in the home. So, Shefali, how have you seen a shift from the conscious parent to now with the parenting map in regards to how parents receive that?
No, I mean, you and I have talked about how it's now become a global movement, and it's taken 14, 15 years, and so many others are now joining. You do this work out there. I have a coaching institute. I train people to do it. I think when the parent experiences the shifts that can happen when you begin to do your own work and begin to understand the child from the perspective of your childhood, how that profoundly changes the dynamic. And when the parent sees how deeply things shift and how meaningful connections can become when the parent does the inner work, every parent has now been, who's felt that, has spread that message. And like you, it's taken one mother to another mother to another mother. And now conscious parenting is such a huge thing out in the world. Now I see people calling themselves conscious parenting teachers and educators and coaches, and I don't even know who they are. So it's phenomenal how infectious it has become. And again, thanks to people like you, thanks to Oprah, of course, that it's had a spotlight. But again, if it did not create the changes that it promises to create within the child and parent dynamic, if the parent did not see firsthand how profoundly different their connection can be, this would not be an infection. It's become a global movement because parents have seen Oh, when my kid, my 14-year-old tells me they hate me and they shut the door, slam dunk in my face. Oh, it's not about me trying to fix my child. It's me trying to understand my child. And I can only understand my child once I understand what's happening within me. Children have a way of making us feel how they feel. And we ignore that because we're so blind in our reactions. But this work teaches us to go within and explore what's coming up for us and shift the dynamic. And, I can't believe it, because 15 years ago, when I would say things like, your child is not triggering you, the trigger is inside you, or I would say something like, don't discipline your children in the traditional way, it's a load of BS, I would get so much resistance. But now, after 15 years of breaking it down and people like you being ambassadors, now people are beginning to understand that I can raise my child in a different way than I was raised. I can raise my child away from fear, guilt, and shame. I can raise my child with deep connection and empowerment in a way that I never had. And this is the future of the new tomorrow.
It is. And to actually have a relationship with your kid starting very early, like this is not like a thing where once they're 15 or 16, then I'll start talking to them about a relationship, or once they're 25, they'll come back and then we'll get along. Like you can actually have a relationship with your child where they know you as a person and you know them, especially if you have more than one, that they're all different. And another thing that you say in your book is that the goal in the long term is to become irrelevant to our kids, which I think really hits, again, it's another, I love your language, because that's what you do. You wake people up. Like, what does that mean, irrelevant? Because so many of us want to be validated by our kids. So what is it? What do you get? What are you going for with that?
Yeah. You know how many people have been triggered by that word?
Totally.
On Super Soul, there's a little clip of me saying we should make ourselves irrelevant. And I think the last time I saw it had like 15 million views. And when I went to check the chat, oh my goodness, it was all a furor over the word irrelevant.
Right.
And it just speaks to how invested we parents are in being relevant. So let me explain. Children, infants, toddlers, young children develop their sense of self from how we see them. In our capacity to see them for their essence, without contouring them and puppeteering them into an image of our making, allows them to believe in who they are and feel worthy as they are.
Yeah.
Sadly, because we parents are so indoctrinated by culture and by our own childhood baggage, we don't see the child for who the child is. We see the child for who they can become and make us feel, who we want them to become. So we impose all this garbage onto them. Now, when they grow up, because they don't have a sense of self, they rely on us. And that makes our ego feel so important and significant and valid. We love that. The other day, a mother told me in session that her 17 and 21-year-old children called her every day. And she was so proud of it. And we talk every day and we're best friends. Now, listen, it's no harm if your child calls you every day. And of course, you should be friendly. But she gained a sense of identity from that. You see, that was the toxic part. Like, okay, you're looking too happy about this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, healthy parents who have their own life and their own purpose love their children calling them, but they don't need their children to call them every day. That's a toxic enmeshment. But of course, the child has to do that because all their life they were told to supplant their own inner power and give it to the parent. So we parents thrive on this egoic dominance in our children's lives. So when I dare to suggest that your goal is to really back away, what that means is not that you're not important. You're very important, but your importance plays out the most when you hand over the baton to your child. When you give them power, that's when you're really executing the greatest importance. And parents don't understand that. They feel threatened by that. But when we fade away and become irrelevant, what that means is you're empowering your child to take the driver's seat and to lead their own way with your guidance, but you're no longer center stage. You are now backstage.
Yeah, and there's such a nuance when we're talking to parents about what it means to be available to your kid and be a support system to your kid, is that that's a relationship piece where they know they can come to you and talk to you, and that you're not going to be constantly judging and teaching at them. But support doesn't mean you are absolutely necessary for them to survive, meaning they need to, we're almost like the support we want to offer is giving it back to them, giving it
Right.
back, like allowing them to make decisions. But parents really struggle with that, Shefali, like the ability to trust that their kids know what they need.
And again, so let's reframe that. Parents
Yeah.
really struggle with that because they were never trusted by their parents and they never experienced self-trust.
Right.
We walk around with these big holes of self-loathing, self-distrust, self-hatred, self-insecurity. We are displaced from our own inner connection and divorced from our own inner trust. And that is why we project that I don't know what I'm doing, so you must not know what you're doing. If we entered our own inner empowerment and trust and direction, even though we may fail, but we pick ourselves up and we're resilient and we see proof of that in our lives, and we honor that power within ourselves, we will not take it away from another human being. All that you see in the world right now, where we are robbing people of their rights, including our children, is because we feel displaced from our rights, right? That is trauma reenacted. So it's hard for us to trust another, especially our children, because we were never given this spotlight by our parents. Our parents robbed us of our trust. And the typical hierarchical family where the parent is the dogmatic know-it-all on the pedestal of superiority, that is a highly enmeshed family, Cathy.
Yeah.
People think, oh, it's such clear boundaries. You are on top, I'm at the bottom. No, it's enmeshment, because this parent is constantly telling this one what to do, and that bond of elasticity is so short and tight there because the child has to be a minion right under the tutelage of that dogmatic parent.
Yeah.
So it is such a toxic enmeshed dynamic where you feel scared. This child feels scared to believe in another God, feels scared to wear another outfit, we feel scared to leave the country. When I came from India to America, I was shocked when American parents would say, oh, I want my child to go to a college close by. I had just left from India and come to America, and my parents were like, go, go, go. And I was like, why? Why would you want your child in the formative years of their life to experience what they've already experienced? Isn't the point of life to experience contrast, to grow through trouble and pain? Isn't that the point of life?
Yeah.
Right? We say from one side of the mouth, we need to create resilience. And then on the other side of the mouth, we are dictatorially telling our children every step of the way what they should do. So this is high enmeshment. And we're scared to walk in our own lane and let our children spring into their own destiny because we don't live autonomous. We live highly dependent on what others say to us, what our partner says to us, what our daddy says to us. What does mommy feel about me? We haven't grown up. We haven't adulted. Part of adulting is autonomy, is differentiation, is individuation. And we are still enmeshed with our dictatorial parents.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, we want our children to be enmeshed with us.
And it's so important for parents to understand that knowing this, all these things that Shefali is saying, and doing the work to be less, enmeshed and to be less overprotective, it doesn't mean you're always going to, you're going to know that you should do that, but you don't always feel it. And I'll give an example because Shefali just was talking about going abroad, and Shefali JC went abroad last semester. my oldest, and she was in Italy. She was basically doing everything on her own, doing it all, right? And I didn't feel comfortable every day. I wasn't like, oh, this is great. I was struggling, but I knew that was my work. That is not for her to make me feel better about what she's doing. And I was never like, well, now you should come home because you've had all these horror stories. This is the whole point, is that this process of being able to recognize where you still have issues, because you, in your book, you go through the different kinds of things that parents do, being fighters or being feigners, and you have your own language for it. And I, of course, I am I wrote, on my unconscious days, I am a mix of enabler and superhero, which are two of the examples that you give in your book. That is I will say, kind of how I was raised. That's what comes up for me. That's my history. That's my work to do. So I don't know if you want to talk about enabler and superhero, or what you are, Shefali, what comes up for you when you're, parenting. But, we all have a defense mechanism. Yeah. We all have things we need to deal with.
Yes, 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 constantly. So a couple of things, I'm just going to break it down. So first, what you talked about was the inability we parents have to let our children go and fly and live their own life because of our anxiety. Right. So we are so fused with our children, and we think we own them. And in a way, they did come from us. So, nature does a number on us. So we think that psychologically they are ours. And so whatever anxieties we have, we feel, righteous to place on them. And what I teach is individuation. Your crap is your crap. Your child's crap will be their crap. Can you please separate the laundry? Don't mix the white and the color. I mean, you know what I mean? The clothes. Yes. So don't mess it up. And that's what we're doing. We're fusing because we haven't done our work to recognize our own patterns. So we just vomit and purge it onto our children. And another tricky way we do it. So my daughter is currently in Italy, and one semester away.
Yep.
And I just do the opposite. I'm so excited that I'm pushing her too much. Like, go, do, go to China next, learn Italian, fall in love with an Italian. Like, I'm doing the opposite, but the same. How dare I tell her to do anything? Right. My excitement is mine. Every day I watch how I want to tell her I'm so excited. It's just the same as wanting to tell her I'm so worried. It's just the same as wanting to tell them I love you every damn day. Mm-hmm. Is it coming from us, or is it coming from their need? She didn't ask. JC didn't ask, are you anxious or not? She's like, manage your own stuff. Mm-hmm. My daughter's not asking how I feel about her trip, but I must interject, right? Because I want to feel valid. I want to feel like I'm part of this with you. How sad and tragic, right? I should be going to Italy myself. Mm-hmm. Right. And I give this example, right, about when my daughter was learning to play piano and I was yelling at her every day. I then did the work and I said, maybe you should learn to play the piano. So I began taking piano lessons to see how it feels, to practice on demand, to have the teacher come in the middle of your snack and you just have to be in a good mood. And I quit. And then I let my daughter quit because I was miserable. I couldn't practice at all. And I realized, wow, look at us just telling our children to go practice and be creative on demand. I couldn't do it. So I experienced it for myself. And that's what I encourage parents to do. Be your own specimen in your own experiment. Don't make your child your specimen in your experiment. You are your lab rat. Your child is not your lab rat. But anyway, the other part of what I talk about a lot in this book that I love, what Cathy alluded to, is the faces of our ego. Mm-hmm. And I give 5 faces of the ego. The fighter, the one who is angry, whose default is anger. Many clients come to me and all they have in their toolkit is anger. So I always tell them, do we have any other tools in the toolkit? Do we have humor? Do we have play? Do we have joy? And they're like, no, we only have anger. So we've developed this ego of anger, the fighter, because that's a way to protect ourselves when we feel nervous, when we feel stressed. The other ego mask is of the fixer, and the fixer operates out of anxiety. So Cathy's two subtypes, enabler and superhero, are part of the fixer umbrella. And so a lot of anxiety there.
Yep.
I'm the same.
Yep.
Then the third one is the feigner, F-E-I-G-N-E-R, like a faker. I wanted to say faker, but my publisher didn't think that was lovely. So those are the attention seekers who do everything for attention. How do I look? Put it on social media. Me. Let's buy the fancy clothes. And children are basically puppets in their parents' movie or production company. And then we have the freezers who operate out of deep avoidance, a lot of men. And then we have the fleers who are just very traumatized and they operate out of abandonment because they were abandoned. So I get into this more in the book, but these ego masks are what we wear when we are threatened. And we learn to wear these ego masks when we were children. As children, when we were threatened, we wanted to be soothed. We wanted to feel safe. We wanted to feel whole. But our parents, because they were in their own ego mask and they were in their own throes of chaos and unworthiness, they told us to shut up, zip it, suppress it, be a good girl, let's move on, don't be attention seeking, or whatever they said to us, or they got angry with us, punished us. And so we learned it was unsafe to show our feelings. So then we put on a mask. And these are the masks we wear. And these masks then fuel our behavior. Are we superachievers? Are we people pleasers? Are we comedians and clowns? What are we doing to cope with our deep sense of unworthiness? And what I teach parents is if they're very honest and very aware, they will notice in the subtle, like she noticed when she's anxious about her daughter, and what I notice when I'm excited about my daughter, that it's coming from a need to be worthy, a need to place ourselves in the other person's lane and say, see me, see me. And it's very hard for parents to shrink that ego and operate out of a place of true abundance. Because when we do, though, our children will fly. And in a weird way, that scares us.
Right. It's an identity that we have, like I wasn't someone who grew up saying, oh, I can't wait to be a mother. Like, I feel like I chose when I was 30. I'm like, now I want to, but I wasn't, I didn't know, but there are so many people I know and work with who say the thing I wanted most was to be a mother. And so it's an identity that they've carried inside of them for so long that as children are getting older, are starting to make their own decisions or becoming, the parents are becoming more irrelevant. I know it's a triggering word, but it's hard for the shift to be like, well, then what now? What now? Which I feel like another one of your books does a beautiful job talking about, when we're talking about mothers and women, but to that, how do you support moms when they're struggling with that identity change?
Yeah, so it is an identity and it is an important identity. And I don't want to take away from its amazing, sacred importance. And I think we are actually, in a weird way now, the modern woman is throwing away that identity. They don't want to be mothers now. So either we're fusing too much or we're throwing it away, but both of them are coming from a reaction to our own pain. When we can occupy a place of power and purpose in our own lives, then we take the motherhood very seriously, but we don't identify with how our children are doing. We identify with the mothering in terms of making sure we're coming from abundance and consciousness, but we don't qualify what that child should turn out as. The child is not a product of our insecurity, for our insecurity to be overcome. The child is its own identity. I can identify as a mother, but it's when we enmesh with how the child should turn out, that's a problem. So it's one thing to say, identify as being the best mother I can be. I identify as being the most present mother I can be. I identify as doing my inner work. Those are amazing mandates. But when we start saying things like this, however, such silently to ourselves, I identify as the mother of a successful child. I identify as the mother of a heterosexual child. I identify as a grandmother, so my child needs to have a child. I identify as a mother of a swimmer, a mother of a good girl. Oh my goodness, now your identity is being tied to how they should be. That's the tricky part. And that's not fair for our children. When you become a mother, you are mothering the essence of your child, no matter what that looks like at the end of the day. And that's where we go so far and then we go over. We go too over into abducting our children and, trapping them because we are so insecure. A confident, secure, conscious mother goes so far and stops. So this is the art. You want to love, but you don't want to abduct. You want to care for, but you don't want to smother, right? And it's this art. And the more you do your inner work, you will know where to stop, because you have your own boundaries and your own sense of self that you don't need to maraud another human being for a sense of self.
Yeah, the abduction that you're talking about, I see it in, a child is ready to be done with swimming, or they're done. They're like, I'm finished. And the parent's like, you're not, because college, you may want to swim, or you're going to be a junior, or the coach said you'll, be first next year. Or, like you gave the example of piano, you're not going to quit because you will be grateful that you can play the piano when you get older, which is really just us saying, I wish I would have played the piano. But there's this belief again that is, if you do what I say, you will turn out better, or you will not have the problems that I had. And really what we're trying to do is decrease that likelihood. I had certain problems that if I see you have them, they're going to be so difficult and triggering to me. I'm going to do everything I can to give you a different experience. And my question for you, I know I'm always like throwing words at you here, but I think parents have, like you said, over the last 14 years, a lot of clinical language now. They can self-diagnose a lot of things. There's a lot of language out there that's become mainstream, trauma and narcissists and, but I don't think people know how to put this into practice all the time. They'll say, yeah, I know I'm anxious, but my kid does need to be in swimming. We have this hard time putting these pieces together. So with your clients, or what, you're talking about when they become more conscious, what are the practices that you give people so they know how to put their ideas into reality?
Yeah. So the first thing I teach, and I've taught it in this book and other books, is you have to know what cultural stories you've bought into.
Yes.
And most of us have bought into the same cultural stories. Like, for example, if my child gets straight A's, they're going to be happy and successful in life. If my child is a star swimmer, that's going to look good in college. They're going to be happy and successful in life. If my child is straight and has 10 children, they're going to be happy and things like that. The basic mainstream matrix cultural belief systems that we've all bought into. If my daughter looks like this and doesn't have acne and has shiny glossy hair, she's going to be happy. Just ridiculous correlations that we've made, because when we were young, we were shamed for not being all those things. Not being a little bit of, I say Mother Teresa, a little bit of Julia Roberts, a little bit of a sprinter, a little bit of a Barack Obama, a little bit of a, Adele. Every little quality we were told by our parents would make us look better in the world to others. And we thought our worth would come from how many cars we have, how many pairs of shoes are in the closet, how pretty we are, how long our hair is, how short our hair, whatever. We put our focus, because we were taught to put our focus of our worth on things, people, places, events. And that's why we never developed a deep intrinsic sense of worth separate from our shoes, our clothes, our body, our children, or whatever. So now we're in trouble. Now, when our child is just being a child, happy to be themselves, we're like, oh, this cannot be. I was told by culture, you are not enough as you are. So now we keep putting things on our child, be a swimmer, be in the drama club, go out with the popular crowd, wear the fancy shoes, comb your hair this way, be a doctor. And we keep tweaking them because we truly believe, because we are in delusion ourselves, that this will make you happy at the end of the rainbow.
Mhm.
So as long as we ourselves have not done the inner work to realize that these things don't make you happy or joyful or purposeful or connected, we will keep telling our children this garbage. I think it was Jim Carrey who said, I wish for every person to become rich and famous, because then they'll get to see how unhappy they continue to be, right? Because we're coveting these things at the end of the rainbow. So this is the hard work for parents, Cathy.
Yeah.
This is the hard work, because they have to look at how they have been attached to these toxic belief systems in their own life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they have to look at what their issues are with beauty, what their issues are with body image, with sexuality, with achievement, with success, with money, with homosexuality. They have to look at it because they have believed that there's a certain formula equals happiness and success. Your child is now coming at you and defying this. So you're going to try to contour them into the matchbox, right? Please fit into the box. And your child is going to say, hey, no, I don't like any instrument. I don't want to even look at any trombone, trumpet, or the saxophone. And you're like, what? You may have an idea that this is what will make you successful. So unless we parents are willing to look at our ideals of success, happiness, achievement, we will toxify our children's existence and teach them to depend on these false measures and metrics of worth. And it's all a lie. It's all a lie. And only in our midlife, perhaps, if life wakes you up, or after one or two illnesses, or one or two marriages breaking down, then you realize, oh, my happiness should not have been coming from these sources because they are temporary. I needed to develop a deep connection with who I am. And that's the whole point of parenting, is help your children develop a deep connection with who they are. And it should be separate from these metrics of worth that culture has said are our existence.
Yeah. And where I find the parents have a line with that with me when we talk about these things is they talk about their religion and their culture as being the essential things that they're like, well, yeah, Cathy, I hear you about, the piano, or I hear you about the AP classes, but our religion or our culture, my kid has got to buy in, because that, going back to your language of this is who we are. And so I know that becomes a nuanced, tough one. So can you talk about that?
Well, they're just tricking you, because they're saying that they're willing to let go of that, but they're like, Cathy won't have an answer for this one. Right? It's another attachment.
Yeah.
Because they're making it sound so good to say, I want my kid to follow my tradition. I want my kid to follow my religion. And you'll be the bad one if you say that's not true. They don't have to, right? Then they'll be like, oh, you're telling me that they shouldn't believe in my God. So now they're going to get you on the morality principle, right? Because they mix morality with religion and morality with tradition. And it's not true. And children need to be able to be free to choose what they want to believe in. But because we haven't uncovered our narratives, our stories about God, cosmology, tradition, because we are still enmeshed with what our parents told us, we are believing what they believed, that we've never scientifically deconstructed, we've never had curiosity. And when we don't have curiosity about, is this story true? Were there really, for example, 25 angels in heaven, or whatever your story is? It doesn't matter. Is that true? Can I look at it? Can I examine my stories around God, around cosmology, around the world, how the world came to be? Or am I just going to robotically follow what I was told as a child and hold on to it for dear life and dump it on my child and everybody else around me? And then if people don't like what I'm believing, I will shun them.
Yeah.
How tragic, right? And, we don't have to get into it, but we're seeing the world reflecting this rigidity now. And when you have rigidity around your attachments, you create separation.
Yeah.
And the Buddha taught that nirvana, or enlightenment, is the extinction of attachment to beliefs. When people would ask the Buddha, what do you believe in? he said, I do not have beliefs, because beliefs are the toxic elements that stand between you and me. They create judgment, they create separation. And what we're seeing in the world today is fundamentalist beliefs with deep attachments. And this causes deep violence within the being, because the more you attach to my way is the right way, whatever it could be, wear pink shoes, use a fork, eat eggs at breakfast, right? If a child says, I don't want to eat eggs at breakfast, I want to eat chicken. And you're like, no, the USDA and my parents told me you have to eat eggs at breakfast, right? How ridiculous is that? But it's the same with every belief. We think it's real. We think it's the right way. And each person holds on to their right way. And there is mayhem in the world. There's separation in the world. Our biggest plague in the world is people believing that what they believe is right.
So true. You know what, two of my daughters, we were talking over the holidays about, politics, all those third rail issues, and we're giving all this information. And I remember at one point, my oldest said, Mom, it's our generation's job to challenge you on all of it. And it was right. And it wasn't her way of saying, I'm going to win this argument. She was basically saying, you're not going to win this, your thoughts about how things should go, because it's our job to challenge you on all of these things. Like, this is part of the reason, like, I know, because I've been, you're actually coming to our conference and we're talking about teens. Like, teens are the best as far, if we can, our egos can handle it. They are really the ones who, I mean, we can be woken up when they're toddlers, but teenagers really wake you up. And do you appreciate, I mean, I know Maya's older than, a teen now, but do you appreciate this age?
Oh my God. First, I appreciate every age, and every age has such an amazing, unique, precise purpose. But teenagers are the best, because they are going to take you down from your pedestal of superiority. And the higher you are, the deeper the fall. And they're going to disconnect from you. They will disconnect from you if you do not do your work and you do not give them space to exist. They will find a way to exist for themselves, and they will do that by hiding from you. And they will wear the hood and the sweatshirt. And part of that, even if you're the best parent in the world, they will do, because part of that is developmentally natural. Even if they're super connected to you, they must individuate. They must reject you, because part of it is developmentally necessary for them to do. In fact, the nicer you are and the more connected you are, you're also going to get the same rejection that a disconnected parent gets. So for some time, you're going to be like, what the hell? I did everything Dr. Shefali said. I listened. I was giving space. I'm free. I'm permissive. Why are they rejecting me? Because part of it is fundamentally, developmentally necessary, whether you're the best parent or the most disconnected. How you handle that phase of natural rejection of your authority will determine how you get out of it. So the conscious parent who knows that this is inevitable, who knows this is necessary, and can just stay on the shore while the turbulent waves are coming crashing at you, that parent will come out strong. The parent who enters unconscious will not be able to handle this inevitable rejection, and they will exit disconnected, right? I always tell parents, handle the teenage years well. Your child will come back to you. And Cathy and I have children, the same age. The oldest child, at least, of Cathy's is the same. They do come back, but they from 16 or 15 to 21, they've gone. The aliens have abducted them. But if you understand that, they've gone to Pluto, if it existed, they've gone, and you don't have to be threatened by it, because you understand and appreciate this is necessary. You're going to get slammed. Everything out of your mouth is going to be wrong. The way you breathe, the way you comb your hair, they're going to reject, not because you are bad. It's because they want to find their power, their goodness. When they reject the God that you think you are, it's not because they're being mean to you. They're trying to find the God within themselves.
Mm.
And if you understand that, then you're like, okay, I have to wait how many more years? She said they will come back, but they do come back. And it's shocking when they come back and you're like, oh, you like me. But it was never about you. We made it about us. But it takes a lot of self-awareness, a lot of purpose in our own lives to not get rattled, because they're brutal. They are brutal. They are, they'll go at you. And really, in fact, the more close they are to you, the more they're going to separate. One time, my daughter even said to me, you're so mean to me. I'm going to emancipate myself from you. I was like, go ahead. I want to emancipate myself too. I was like, who's going to do it first? I made it a joke and she didn't like that I was like making it irreverent.
Yeah.
But I was like, I was just so happy that she knew the word emancipate. I was like, oh, that's such a big word. I was like, where is she going to go? But a part of me was a little nervous. The inner child in me said, oh, my daughter's going to leave me. But then I checked myself, right? I was like, oh, don't, she's testing you.
That's right.
And if we're weak and unconscious, we're going to get angry and upset and fragile.
Yes. And all those things that you're saying, that we need as a country, that we need as a world, this critical thinking, this questioning, this pushing back, they have to learn that by being in relationship with us and others, of course. We have to give them the room to have that movement to question things. So I have been taking up all of your time, and I know that there are other people who have questions. So I just didn't know if there are, okay, Gilda, you have some questions. So do you want to say them? Go ahead.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, thank you. Wow, what a fascinating conversation about this fabulous book. I so agree with you, Shefali, what you were saying. I remember when your first book came out and I gasped a little bit like, this is a big leap, but this is not a big leap. This is a doable leap. And I think about some of the, even 29 years ago when we started this, when my child was 13, I heard about a book called Get Out of My Life, but First Will You Drive Me and Cheryl to the Mall? And I thought, wow, this is genius. This is genius. I'm not the only one. And I think that's it. I think these conversations make you feel when they push us away, there's something wrong with us. And then I remember children got older and I was struggling with a really important life decision from one of my children. We're hosting Robert Brooks, and he said, Gilda, do you see this floor here? This floor has lots of checks on it. You're standing on his square. That is his square. Get off his square. He has to live on it. And I so appreciate here. Now, with all of that, here is my question. You talk about the importance of the inner work. So it's a two-part question. How do I get started doing this inner work and maybe my child is now a teenager, and how do I back up a little bit? And then when parents start doing that inner work, what's the biggest mistake they make? So that's my question.
So how to start doing the inner work? Well, first you have to be willing to, really pivot your life and say, enough, I'm tired of yelling, I'm tired of screaming, I need to go do something. And the answer is not fixing my child. So you read this book, The Parenting Map, you enlist a coach, you begin to uncover your patterns and look at the way your ego has been created over your lifespan, and you begin to heal all that you left behind in childhood unprocessed. So that takes like a good year at least. It's work. It's a commitment you make, but when you do it, your entire life changes. And the second question was what?
Biggest mistake when parents get started.
The biggest mistake is that parents do it for two different reasons and in two wrong ways. Number one, they do it they'll say, okay, I'll do the inner work, but they want to see an immediate change in their child. Right? They're doing it still not to do the inner work. They're doing it to get a better kid. And it takes a long time for them to understand, oh, it's not about my kid. Oh, it's not about my kid. Because we're still trying to secretly tell them, oh, I'm doing my work, but now you do yours and you become a better person too. So that's the wrong mistake. That's the wrong thing they do. And the other thing they do is they think it's going to happen overnight. or there is such a thing called the perfect conscious parent. So then when they see their unconsciousness yet again after 2 years, I see it every day, right? Every day I see my unconsciousness show up. But parents think that it's a one and done thing, and they get tired, they get exhausted, they get disheartened. And they have to understand that this is the life's mission, to keep evolving and healing.
Beautiful. Dr. Cathy, I know you have a question.
Absolutely. Cathy and Dr. Shefali, thank you for this conversation. I will admit, for my boys are 20 and 21, and I've always kind of battled in my own head, worrying if I was missing a mom gene or if I was a bad mom. Because when my kids went off to kindergarten or even college, I remember seeing all of my friends saying they were just a mess and bawling their eyes out. And I was like, I was excited for them. I'm like, I do feel a little sadness in the next phase of life, but I truly, I would always say I'm missing a mom gene. And I think it's so interesting. Parenting is just such a challenging job. And I wanted to ask a question about tracking kids, because another thing I've never done is I've never tracked my boys. And again, I always struggled a little bit internally of, am I doing the wrong thing? God forbid something goes wrong with them. I just feel like they need to keep moving along in their lives and learning inch by inch. Oh, what does that feel like? Oh, I made a mistake. Oh, that doesn't feel good, but I made it for myself. And so I don't know where I determined to do that as a parent, but I just want my kids to either succeed or fail of their own doing. And when they would come home with straight A's, my first thing to them would be, you must feel so proud of yourself. You've worked so hard for that. And if they came home with their first C, I'd be like, you know what? I got my first C in 5th grade social studies too. And I remember my son going, really? And I was like, well, hold on. Are you smart enough to have gotten a B? Did you work hard enough? He's like, not really. And I said, then maybe next time you could work harder. How does it feel to get a C? He's like, I don't like it. It feels crappy. I was like, okay, well, next time, work a little harder. And he's like, so I'm not in trouble? I was like, it's not my grade. They're your grades. Anyway, to get back to the tracking, I heard you speak on an interview, I believe it was with Oprah, about tracking. And can you just share a little bit about your perspective? Because I think parents believe that their kids are only safe if they are highly worrying and not sleeping till they're home, or they are checking in on whatever tracking unit they have 10 times a day. Can you speak to that?
Yes, so thank you. It sounds like you did a great job. And what you're saying when you say, am I missing the mom gene, is I think you've just got healthy boundaries, and you have a nice integration of your feminine and masculine, and you have some nice, compartmentalization going on that many times I look at fathers and I go, wow, you can just walk away. And they're like, yeah, why are you crying? So it's a lovely thing, it's a lovely
Thank
thing.
you.
So I don't think you've done anything wrong. So with the influx of technology, we are being seduced to feed our anxieties, right? Instead of culture trying to tell us, back off your children, they're going to be more safe today than ever, because if they don't have a phone, someone near them will have a phone. So relax. What the culture, the capitalist industry is doing to us is capitalizing on the anxiety that we've always had and saying, oh, you want more control? Here, why don't you put a chip in their brain? They won't even know. Why don't you leave some sensors in their backpack and then put something in their watch and put something in their water? And, it's capitalizing on our anxiety. And we think, oh, we're keeping them safe. But what we're doing is allowing the anxiety to go unchecked. What we really need to do is ask ourselves, how did our parents deal with us? Like, I came at 21 from India here. I didn't even have a phone, right? And we were fine, and we found a way to be fine. I'm not saying remove all your apps. I don't track my kid. And anyway, my kid wanted to track me more than I wanted to track her. I was like, hello, no, don't track me. She's like, we should track each other. I was like, this is a nightmare. No, thank you. I want to go to the club with my girlfriends. I don't want you spying on me. Right. So why do we need so much surveillance, right? You have to ask yourself why. And it's feeding the anxiety. It's feeding the beast of control. And I don't think it's healthy. I have parents who know exactly where their kids are. I mean, how much safety? Your kid is 22 now at college. Everyone and their parents and their dog has a phone. So why do we now need to track our children? Because we haven't done the work to process that anxiety and to let go of our children, right? It's our way to stay in control and enmeshed. And I challenge parents of kids over 21, no, go on a diet of no apps that track your kids. See how it feels. Try to live in that zone and strengthen your muscle of letting go. Because we bypass strengthening that muscle with all these apps. And you and I grew up, we didn't have phones to text our parents, I'm okay, good night. The other day, my daughter didn't say good night. I said to her, you have to say good night. What bullshit? She doesn't have to say good night. But I allowed myself to say it because she's in Rome. But when did we say good night to our parents? Every night? I mean, she's 21. It's kind of sick, and it's infantilizing. And it's because we haven't done the work, and we need to do the work fast, and start letting our kids go. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I know that every once in a while I'm like, oh, I haven't talked to my son who's in college for like a week and a half, and then I'll check in. And again, it goes back to that little voice in my head, like, man, I again, I appreciate this conversation because it's every once in a while I'm like, am I not doing it right? And I'm pretty confident in my parenting. I feel like I've loved watching them grow up. These years have been my favorite because I feel more like a coach. I'm still their parent and I'm still there. But what they've said is, we know if something goes really wrong, the first person we want to call is you. And that's a huge compliment to me.
Exactly.
I love
Exactly.
that.
And but we have to ask how we are with our parents, right? And if you are constantly in touch with your parents, you think that's normal. That's not normal, especially at 45 and 50. You shouldn't be talking to your mommy every day. Now, you can go ahead and if your mom's your best friend, but there's something a little bit messed up in that because your mom needs to have her best friends and you need to have your best friend, and you can be lovely and friendly, but you got to shut it down. Why? Because when we stay, here's another reason. When we stay with our mothers as our best friends, it's lovely to have the feeling that your mother is your best friend. But when you actually count on her to be your best friend, think about it. You are operating in the same cosmology that you grew up with. There's nothing new coming. Your mother is now dated, right? Now she's, not really exposed to a lot in the world. That shouldn't be your close circle. You want to be with people who are contemporary. You want to, at least in terms of input in your life, you can love your mother. You can tell her everything in the world, but she shouldn't be your primary source of input because there's a different dynamic there, right? She may be dependent on you. She may be loving your dependency on her. She's not going to tell you the whole truth. Or she may be very critical of you, and then you're still enmeshed there. You want clean slate people. It's the same thing as when we say, try not to work with people. Sorry, Cathy. Try not to work with people you are married to or your best friends with. No, Cathy and Todd are okay. I mean, they're an exception. But you try to separate. Why do we try to separate? Because you want the truth to be told to you, and you don't want the lines to be crossed. And same with your children. They should go make their own friends. Don't cross the lines, Be loving and friendly, but don't be counting on these relationships as the core relationships beyond the role.
Don't worry, Cathy. I work with my husband too. He and I run the branch together. So don't worry.
Well, we have like 5 different jobs that we don't do together. So we're pretty overly honest with each other.
Oh, yeah. We have separate lives, Cathy says.
I have a question for you. My last question. You are in New York and you're in an elevator, and it's a very, very tall building. And you see that there is a mother who you desperately want to throw this book at, but you can't because you don't have a copy in your purse. But on this elevator ride, you're getting in on the first floor, you're going all the way to the top. What are you going to say to her so that you begin this process to really help her to understand how she can best benefit her child with the best of intentions, how we can best benefit our child?
Oh, goodness. There is no elevator speech. But what I would say to her is, the best thing you can do for your child is to live your own life. You know, I mean, in one sentence, I can't really say much. And let me tell you, no parent will even come to this message unless they have experienced the pain of parenting.
Yeah.
So if she's enjoying the moment with her child, she's not even going to hear me. But when the child is acting out and I come to them and I give an intervention, then she will hear me. So people only come to coaches and therapists when they are in pain. And that's a sad thing because it's often, quote unquote, very late, but it's a good thing because at least they're open. So this is a message really that can only be heard by the humble. And when pain makes us humble, then we open our ears. And so I wait for people, for their children to give them pain because it's coming.
That's the whole thing, because it's coming. If it's not coming when they're in elementary school, it's going to come in high school. It's going to come. It's going to come. Such important
Yes.
words. What a fabulous conversation. Just, I'm so delighted that you came. You have an amazing website with offerings that people should absolutely investigate. So much for them to become coaches themselves and learn more, and definitely pick up this book, put it on your nightstand. Dr. Cathy, thank you for helping out. Cathy, don't forget, there's a great conference happening this weekend. Check it out. Cathy, you want to say a quick word about that?
Yeah, because the most important thing you need to know is Shefali will be at this conference. So
Right.
Shefali is coming to Chicago this weekend, and she's doing a deep dive on Friday night. So people who want a little more integration. And then Saturday morning, she's doing the keynote. So, and we also have a lot of other people from Chicagoland that are familiar, to GPS, Dr. John Duffy, Devorah Heitner, Michelle Eichert. It's pretty amazing. So maybe you can have a link to that somewhere, or just go to zenparentingradio.com.
We've got a link. We've got a link at the beginning. We'll post it again. Ladies, thank you so much. Fabulous conversation. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. Kiss the
Thank you,
kids.
everyone. Bye.
Bye, Shefali. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.